When I found my disabled 5-year-old Emma crying, I never imagined our HOA president Veronica had stolen her $12,000 mobility device. Then my neighbor called. I saw her driving to Eagles Peak. The 600-meter cliff drop destroyed everything. Now Veronica sits in jail, and our community has finally found its heart. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. I never thought I would see the day when someone would be cruel enough to throw my daughter's most precious possessions from the top of Eagles Peak. The 600-meter drop destroyed everything in seconds. But as I watch the police car drive away with Veronica Matthews in the back seat, I feel a sense of justice I never expected to experience. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Alex Morgan, and my 5-year-old daughter Emma has cerebral palsy. She's the light of my life, bright eyes, curly brown hair, and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. Despite her physical limitations, Emma's spirit soars higher than most adults I know. 6 months ago, my husband David and I moved to Pinerest Estates, hoping for a fresh start. The neighborhood seemed perfect: good schools, accessible parks, and houses that we could modify for Emma's wheelchair. We spent our life savings on the down payment and special renovations to make our home work for our daughter. The trouble began 3 days after we moved in. I was setting up Emma's therapy area in our front yard, a small space with colorful equipment that helped with her mobility exercises, when a sharp knock interrupted us. At the door stood Veronica Matthews, president of the Pinerest Homeowners Association, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun that seemed to stretch her face into a permanent look of disapproval. "Mrs. Morgan," she said without introducing herself, "I'm here about the—" She paused to look at Emma's specialized wheelchair and therapy equipment with distaste. "Items in your front yard." "It's Ms. Morgan," I corrected her. "And this is medical equipment for my daughter." Veronica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, whatever it is, it needs to be moved immediately. It violates Section 8 of our HOA agreement. No recreational equipment visible from the street." "This isn't recreational," I explained, trying to stay calm. "These are therapeutic tools prescribed by Emma's doctor." Emma wheeled herself forward. "I need them to get stronger," she said in her sweet voice. Veronica barely glanced at my daughter. "Rules are rules. You have 48 hours to comply, or you'll face daily fines." That was just the beginning. Over the next few months, the violations piled up. A citation for the ramp we installed at our front entrance. Complaints about Emma's specialized swing in the backyard. Warnings about the width of our driveway, which we'd expanded to accommodate Emma's medical transport van. Fines for the grab bars we installed on the exterior of our home. Each time, we explained these were necessary accommodations for Emma's disability. Each time, Veronica Matthews refused to listen. "The property values in this neighborhood are my responsibility," she would say. "If we make exceptions, where does it end?" David and I consulted a lawyer who specialized in disability rights. He assured us that the Americans with Disabilities Act superseded HOA regulations. We sent a formal letter explaining this to the board, with copies of Emma's medical documentation. The day after the board received our letter, I found Emma crying in her room. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "Ms. Matthews came to my window during my nap," she sobbed. "She said I'm making the neighborhood ugly and we should move away." Something broke inside me. No one speaks to my child that way, especially not when she's alone and vulnerable. I called an emergency meeting with the HOA board, but only 3 of the 7 members showed up. Veronica had conveniently scheduled a competing social event for the others. The next day, Emma's favorite therapy bear, a specialized weighted toy that helped with her sensory processing, disappeared from our front porch. Then her custom cushions. Then the small garden ornaments she loved to look at during her exercises. We installed security cameras. The footage showed Veronica herself sneaking onto our property at dawn, taking items she deemed violations. We filed a police report, but the local officer just shrugged. "HOA disputes are civil matters," he said. "Unless there's significant property damage, there's not much we can do." David and I were at our breaking point. Emma's physical progress was suffering without her equipment, and the financial strain of replacing stolen items while paying unjust HOA fines was crippling us. Then came last Sunday, the day everything changed. Emma had qualified for a specialized mobility device, a lightweight frame that would help her stand and walk short distances. Insurance had finally approved it after months of fighting, and it had been custom-fitted to her measurements. It cost over $12,000 and would change her life. It arrived Saturday afternoon, and Emma was so excited she could barely sleep. "Tomorrow I'm going to take steps in the backyard, Mommy," she whispered as I tucked her in. Real steps. I woke Sunday morning to the sound of a car door slamming. Through the window, I saw Veronica Matthews' white SUV speeding away. A sick feeling washed over me. I ran to the garage where we'd stored Emma's new mobility device. It was gone. David called the police while I tried to comfort our heartbroken daughter. This time, the responding officer was Sergeant Garcia, new to the precinct and unimpressed by HOA politics. "Theft over $10,000 is grand larceny," she said, taking detailed notes. "And if this was targeted because of your daughter's disability, there could be additional charges." Our neighbor Ted approached while the police were still there. "I saw everything," he said grimly. "I was walking my dog early this morning. Veronica took something big from your garage and put it in her car. She drove toward Eagles Peak." Eagles Peak was a famous lookout point about 20 minutes from our neighborhood, a stunning cliff with a 600-meter drop to the rocky valley below. Sergeant Garcia radioed for backup and asked us to follow her patrol car. The drive to Eagles Peak was the longest of my life, Emma silent in her wheelchair in the back seat, David's knuckles white on the steering wheel. At the Peak's parking lot, Veronica's white SUV sat empty. Park rangers directed police to a hiking trail that led to the cliff's edge. We waited in the car, not wanting Emma to see whatever might unfold. 30 minutes later, Sergeant Garcia returned, her expression grim. "We found Ms. Matthews at the observation point," she reported. "She admitted to taking the mobility device and disposing of it over the cliff edge. She also confessed to throwing several other items belonging to your daughter from the same location over the past month." I felt physically ill. "What? Why would anyone do that?" she said, and I quote, "Damaged things belong at the bottom, not in our beautiful neighborhood." Sergeant Garcia's voice was tight with controlled anger. They brought Veronica down in handcuffs. She walked past our car, head high, unrepentant. She actually smirked at Emma, who shrank back against her seat. That's when something unexpected happened. As police were placing Veronica in the patrol car, vehicles began pulling into the parking lot, dozens of them. Our neighbors from Pinerest Estates poured out, surrounding our car. Mrs. Chin from across the street approached first. "We heard what happened on the neighborhood watch group. This has gone too far." Mr. Jackson, who rarely spoke to anyone, stepped forward. "My late wife used a wheelchair for 10 years before she passed. What that woman did." He shook his head, unable to continue. The crowd parted, and Brian Taylor, the vice president of the HOA, knocked on our window. When David rolled it down, Brian handed him an envelope. "Emergency board meeting this morning," he explained. "Unanimous decision except for Veronica's empty chair. We've removed her as president and repealed all the fines against your family. This is a refund of everything you've paid, plus interest." I couldn't speak through my tears. "There's more," said Lisa from 2 doors down. She gestured to a young man standing nearby. "This is my brother Marco. He works for Adaptive Mobility Solutions. When I told him what happened, his company offered to rush order a replacement for Emma's device. No charge." Emma's eyes widened. "Really?" Marco knelt by her window. "Really? And this one will have some cool improvements the old one didn't have." The police finished processing the scene, documenting the location where Veronica had thrown Emma's mobility device. Recovery was impossible. The cliff was sheer, the valley below dangerous and remote. As we prepared to leave, Sergeant Garcia approached with news. "Ms. Matthews is being charged with grand larceny, trespassing, destruction of property, and due to her statements and the targeted nature of her actions against a disabled child, we're adding hate crime enhancements. The district attorney is reviewing whether to add charges related to child endangerment and harassment." The story made local headlines that evening and national news by Monday morning. HOA president throws disabled child's medical equipment from 600-meter cliff. Veronica's bail hearing was scheduled for Tuesday. No one posted her bail. In the days that followed, our community transformed. The HOA board unanimously passed new bylaws specifically protecting accommodations for residents with disabilities. Neighbors we'd never spoken to brought meals, offered help, and apologized for not stepping in sooner. "We were all afraid of her," Mrs. Chin admitted. "She threatened to make trouble for anyone who opposed her rules. But seeing what she did to a child, that was the last straw for everyone." Emma's replacement mobility device arrived Wednesday, better than the original, with growth adjustments that would last years instead of months. Marco and his team set it up and provided training for all of us. On Saturday, 1 week after the incident, we held a small gathering in our backyard. Emma took her first steps using her new device, while neighbors cheered and applauded. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, David and I sat on the porch swing. "I keep thinking about Veronica," I admitted. "What makes someone so full of hate that they'd target a disabled child?" David shook his head. "I don't know. But look what came from it. We found our community. The real one, not just houses on the same street." He was right. Veronica had thrown Emma's possessions from a 600-meter height, thinking it would drive us away. Instead, it had lifted our family up, surrounded by support we never expected to find. 2 months later, Veronica Matthews pleaded guilty to all charges. The judge, unmoved by her tearful claims that she was just enforcing the rules, sentenced her to 4 years in prison and ordered substantial restitution payments. Eagles Peak installed a new bench near the observation point with a plaque reading, "Kindness rises, cruelty falls." It was the community's idea, a reminder that hatred might momentarily soar but eventually, it plummets back to earth. As for Emma, she continues to make progress with her mobility. The neighbors formed a volunteer group to help with her therapy sessions. The HOA renamed the community playground after her and made it fully accessible for all children. Sometimes I think about that day at Eagles Peak, watching Veronica being driven away in the police car. I remember feeling both justice and sadness, justice that her cruelty was being punished, sadness that anyone could harbor such hatred toward an innocent child. But mostly I feel gratitude. Not for what Veronica did, nothing excuses that, but for what came after. In trying to push us out, she inadvertently created the very thing we'd been searching for. A true home where Emma is valued not despite her differences, but because of the unique perspective and joy she brings to everyone around her. Yesterday, Emma wheeled herself to our mailbox independently for the first time. 3 neighbors spontaneously applauded. She beamed with pride, her journey just beginning. And somewhere, behind prison walls, Veronica Matthews serves her sentence. A woman who threw precious things from a great height, never understanding that some treasures cannot be broken, even from 600 meters up.